right, perfect. So let's jump right in. I know we're kind of crunched for time, and I definitely want to jump into the content. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this session of the Angel Beat webinar, where we will uncover migrating your data center to Azure. So I want to start with a little bit of background on me. So my name is Michael Paul Brown, but everyone calls me MPB for short. I'm a multi-cloud solutions architect here at Logicworks. Before I made the jump to the cloud, I was actually a data center engineer, certified in both Cisco and VMware. I'm originally from Jamaica, and right now I'm learning how to fly a Cessna 172R. But that's enough about me. Onto our agenda. First,
and MPB, you clearly like the cloud. You know, believe me, I got that little hidden commentary seeing you up there in the clouds in your plane.
Oh yeah, I actually had those Bob Ross socks on. For those who remember Bob Ross, that says "Happy Clouds" as well. Kind of went then. So for our agenda today, we are going to cover three topics. First, the benefits. I'm pretty sure you've heard all day today about the benefits of migrating to Azure, but more from my experience. Then we'll explore at a high level the unified migration platform that is Azure Migrate. At the end, we're going to wrap it up with a nice demo of Azure Migrate. So let's jump right in. The benefits of Azure, has evolved from more than just a theory to more of a, widely accepted truth among business leaders and engineers. I was talking to a customer last week, actually, and I'll summarize what he said in a quote. We're not in the business of building a data center. And Azure allows us to really focus on what makes our business different and drive growth. So the financial benefits of migrating to Azure are really impressive, where we transition from a fixed cost that you've heard earlier about to a more variable cost structure, providing more flexibility in how we allocate and track our spend. The ability to take advantage of, near limitless compute and storage capacity provides organizations with the resources to react dynamically to an ever-changing market. So take, for example, your company creates a MMO FPS, that's a first-person shooter, cat versus dog game that goes completely viral beyond your wildest imaginations. If you're a gamer like me, you know full well lag can ruin your whole gaming experience. So before you have a chance to take any actions in the game, it's already GG, game over. Now, the cloud was really built with automation in mind, increasing process efficiencies, providing companies with that competitive edge while also increasing business continuity. Now, with all that said, we really know the benefits of the cloud already. But for the Azure Migrate solution, I really want to focus on the entire workflow and the unified platform and how it helps customers really take their on-prem resources, or those resources could be someplace else, and migrate them to Azure. As my boss would say, there's an app for that, and in this case, we have the unified migration platform that is Azure Migrate. So think of Azure Migrate as your central hub for all your migration needs. It provides you with a single portal with a range of integrated, powerful tools that allows you to discover, assess, and migrate your on-prem applications to Azure. Now, Azure Migrate can track your entire migration journey, end to end, and it's broken down in these three stages that I mentioned earlier: discovery, assess, and finally, we migrate. All right, let's go a little bit deeper into those concepts. So Azure Migrate provides the integrated tool that automatically discovers and assesses your on-premise workloads. It's easy to use, easy to set up, and guess what? It's an agentless approach, which I'm a big fan of. For highly regulated and compliant infrastructures, they don't like agents. No one really likes agents. So whenever you can use an agentless approach, go for it. Now let's quickly talk about the three stages. In discovery, we shed a light on the applications and workflows to be migrated to Azure. We collect dynamic performance data by leveraging all the suite of discovery tool sets within the platform. Next, with all the information that was discovered, performance data, application dependencies, for example, we move on to the assessment stage, where we determine, are your servers actually ready to migrate to Azure? Or are you running legacy services? Maybe you're running Cobalt or some out of support operating systems. The assessment tool will be able to pick that up for you. Finally, we start the migration project. And we start small. You always want to scope your project small, those low-hanging fruit. Start with those before you do a full-scale production migration. Now, there are a few use cases. Well, there are a lot of use cases for Azure Migrate, but Azure Migrate is commonly used to perform a lift and shift migration of your Windows and Linux workloads to Azure Infrastructure as a Service. But that's not all you can use it for. You can actually use Azure Migrate to migrate your web apps to Azure's App Service. You can use Azure Migrate to migrate your SQL Server, your MySQL Server, your Postgres databases to a fully managed database platform as a service offered by Azure. Now, here's a real live customer example. The team here at Logicworks was faced with a very interesting challenge with this regional bank. This regional bank has been around for over a century. Was faced with the urgent need to evacuate 2 data centers that supported 40 branch locations. The time frame to get this job done was, let's say, a bit unrealistic, but we were up for the challenge. There was no standardization within the infrastructure. There was no documentation. The environment needed to meet, of course, compliance requirements since it's dealing with financial sensitive data. And, well, there also needed to be a lot of business continuity built into the design. And to put the cherry on top, the team didn't have access to the source code for their applications. Oh, and one more thing. There was a requirement, I should say, for no downtime, which is always a requirement for migrations. So using the Azure Migrate tool, Logicworks was able to meet this challenge. Since Azure Migrate does block level replication, there was no need to redeploy the application. Azure Migrate takes care of all of that for us, which is great, since remember, we had no access to the source code to perform a redeployment. By leveraging the discovery and assessment tool in Azure Migrate, our team gained insights into the applications. So there was no documentation before, there was no inventory before. Azure Migration Discovery and Assessment tool gave us all the information that we needed to perform a successful migration. And by taking full advantage of the bandwidth, you can see on the screen there for the express route circuit, Logicworks was successfully able to complete a stage migration of over 300 VMs with no business impact. A truly challenging and interesting project that we're very proud of here at Logicworks. Now, that's just a quick intro, and we're really here for the demonstration of the solution. So I'll switch my screens over and we'll have a look at the Azure console. So right now you should see my Azure console up, and we're in the Azure Migrate service. So we'll look at a few things first. First, we have a look at the discovery and assessment tool. And well, we're going to create an assessment and review that assessment. Then we'll finally move on to the migration stage, and that starts with replication. Now, in the interest of time, I've already taken care of all the prerequisites that you need to get a solution like this working. But I'll also, as I go along, kind of click a few links to show you where you can actually dive a little bit deeper into the documentation, just in case you get stuck. But first, we start with discovery. So let me go over here. So once you get into the Azure Migrate tool, we click in discovery, and this allows us to download an appliance that will allow us to discover our entire structure. And well, it depends. So we have VMware at the top. If you're running a VMware stack, you could be running a Hyper-V stack, or it could just be physical machines you like to migrate into Azure, or well, it also supports other cloud providers, AWS, GCP, migrate all those resources into Azure if you like. The process is very simple. Give your appliance a name, you generate a key, and you download the file. Any system admin can do this. Even your tier 1 help desk person can follow these instructions and get the solution set up. Let's back out one, and let's look at the assess. So once you've discovered your machines, and you'll see them right here in the discovered servers section. But what I'd like to do now is actually create an assessment. So I have an inventory of all the machines I like for this project to be migrated to Azure. So we come over here to perform an assessment so we can determine the readiness of that migration. So I click Azure VM because that's what I like to migrate these services to. My assessment type is Azure VM, of course. My discovery source, this is our migration appliance that in the discovery stage that we set up. Of course, I'm not going to walk you through the lengthy configuration. And then next from here. So as a screen loads, you can see all the services that we discovered. It shows up on the assessment screen. We can select all of them if we really wanted to. Actually, let's select all of them. We can give the assessment a name. Azure Migrate demo. Oops, demo. And we can give it a group name because you can have multiple groups. So if you did a discovery of your entire infrastructure estate, well, we can create a small group that says, well, let's do the dev test service first and group these assets together. We'll call this dev test. You can see how poor my typing skills are. All right, perfect. And click next from here. And it's as easy as, well, clicking create. Now I've already created this assessment, so I don't want to create another one. So I'm going to X out again. And we can go into the overview section where we can dive a little bit deeper into the assessment that was performed earlier. On the left, manage, into assessment. This is what I love about Azure. Everything is very intuitive and the workflow is seamless. Into my demo migration assessment. And here we can view the machines that I've performed a discovery on and assessment. Now, notice here on the readiness side, we have our applications and we have kind of a matrix that's letting us know which machines are ready to migrate to Azure and which machines are ready, but there are a few conditions. And lucky for me, I have no machines that aren't ready for the migration. But we can see here, go ahead over this bar. We see we have one machine here that's conditionally endorsed for Linux, and that's my Ubuntu machine. Now, as you go into this migration project, you will in fact have a few of these machines that are, a little caution or warning around. But it's very easy to understand what you need to do to solve that problem. Just by clicking this link, it will take you directly to the page, and well, we can see right here, conditionally endorsed Linux OS. Azure endorses only selected Linux OS version. So for this particular instance, I know for a fact that it's not supported by Azure. That's why I threw it in the demo there. But the solution was able to pick it up. So if you're thinking about the migration, you're quickly able to identify, well, what level of effort do I need to perform in order to have a successful migration? How many machines need a bit more retweaking? Do I need to update the operating system? Do I need to redeploy my applications on an entirely new kind of operating system? And one of my favorite parts of the discovery and assessment tool is the cost details. I get asked all the time, well, how much is this going to cost me? Yeah, the cloud is great, but what's the actual cost of running my infrastructure as is in AWS? And the cost details provide you with that information. So you can see the cost breakdown for compute and storage. And it actually breaks it down pretty granularly with all the recommendations being incorporated into the tool. Great. So we did our discovery. We performed our assessment. We know which machines are okay to migrate. We also know the expected costs of running these machines in Azure. So next step is, well, let's migrate. So I'll click one out and we'll go back and I'll show you how easy it is to migrate. But before I do that, we do have the Azure Discovery and Assessment tool, but there are other tools you can use as well. So if I click here to add more assessment tools, you can see some of the other ISV, the independent software vendor tools that Azure supports. I know Mover is a fairly popular solution to do quick and rapid discovery and assessments of a large infrastructure. Let's say you have thousands of virtual machines, tens of thousands of virtual machines. Mover might be a good solution for you. But in this case, for this demo, the native solution that Azure provides is perfect. Now, as we move down to the migration tools, it's a bit similar in a sense to the discovery and assessment, where we perform a discover and we choose. I don't have a VMware environment. My environment is actually in another cloud provider. We'll just call it day one. But those who know cloud knows what I'm talking about. We'll select an appliance. I do the install replication appliance. But let's explain this for quite a bit. So you do have a replication appliance and you do have a scale out appliance. And we use the scale out appliance in the use case for that regional bank to perform that massive exodus of those 300 VMs. The replication appliance just doesn't have the bandwidth to support that, but when you scale out, you can migrate, I believe it's up to 500 virtual machines concurrently using this approach. But for now, we select replication appliance, and it's pretty simple. You install it, you configure it, set it up, and it's good to go from there. But what I really want to show you is in the replicate section. So once you've discovered your machines, you performed your assessment, and you've set up your Azure migration tool, the next thing is just to go to the solution and start clicking really next, finish. It's really that easy. I will select physical US, my on-premises appliance. This is my replication appliance that we created in the discovery stage. And everything else is filled out for us. Azure really tries to take away the heavy lifting from the end users and make it a pleasurable experience. We'll click next, and we can go down here. I'll specify the machines, and we can select our Vader app. We'll click next, and we can just fill out the fields here. And if you're familiar with using Azure, this should be intuitive to you. You know you have to select a resource group where your resources will reside. And it looks like I have an appropriately named resource group here. Lucky me. We'll select a virtual network. And this is just a dev test because remember when we started our migration project, we start small, then scale big. Or subnet, I don't really care about that. The default is fine. And again, this is just a demo. I don't need any redundancy, but you do have options to have redundancy as you migrate. So it depends on what you really need. Now, what's unique to Azure is this hybrid benefit where you can bring, I believe it's Windows 2008 R2 servers into Azure at a dramatically reduced price point and receive extended support for those resources as well. In this case, I don't have any of those resources, so I'll just go ahead and click next. Now, this is where the beauty of the solution of Azure Migrate comes into play. Remember all the discovery and assessment we did, all the computation that went in, and it did all the right sizing for us, so we didn't even have to think about it. Well, it pulls all the information in the migration step as well. So I don't have to think about what size VM I need. Azure Migrate did that for us. Click next. And the same thing as well for your disk. The solution takes care of everything for you. No need to worry about tags for this demonstration. And from here, it's just click replicate. Actually, we'll click replicate for this one. Perfect. Now, while that server is replicated in the background, I did perform a replication earlier of another server. So as you can see, Vader's kind of getting set up for a replication. But I do have my dev01 server that I replicated earlier. And it gives you very detailed information, shows you the status of the server, if there's any issues, the target subscription, location, resource group, all the information you would need. All right, let's go back one and back one more. Perfect. So after you perform your discovery, you replicated your server. The next step, if you're okay with everything, is click that migration button, select your server, and then click migrate. Now, before you perform this migration, if you notice at the very top here, you do have the option to shut down the current machine that's running in your environment, whether it's in AWS or GCP, before you perform the migration. This just makes sure that anything that's running on that source machine is able to be synced to the new target destination machine. I always recommend shutting down the virtual machine, but if you can't, well, you don't have to. Azure Migrate gives you a whole bunch of different options, so you can choose the best success path for your migration. All right, so that ends our quick demo. I'll switch back over to our PowerPoint presentation and we can start closing out. So a little bit about Logicworks. Logicworks, we've been in the business for around 24 years. We started out with on-prem data center management. So we were a managed service provider for a whole host of Fortune 500 companies managing, I believe, over, I think it's like $2 trillion in assets for them. But we saw the writing on the wall. Data center, managing physical data center just wasn't where it is. And now you're competing with giants like AWS and Azure and GCP that have so much capital, that has so much engineering talent that it just made sense that we also migrate our resources and our customers to the cloud. So we have a lot of experience migrating not just our customers' resources and tens of hundreds of petabytes of data to the cloud, but migrating our entire business, shifting that model to adopt a cloud-first approach. What's unique about our company is that we're very security focused. We have competencies across migration, across compliance, and we truly work with our customers to understand what is it to drive, what is it that you need, or what is it you're trying to develop in your future state cloud, so we can all come together and achieve a positive outcome. And that's it. It's a really quick presentation. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me at logicworks.net. I'd really like to hear more about some of the challenging problems you're facing migrating to Azure, or if you're already there, some interesting architecture designs and automations that we do here at Logicworks can really accelerate